is a funny old thing. One day you're cock of the walk, the next you're some schmo working in a box factory. Obligatory Simpsons reference out the way, what I'm getting at is that nothing lasts forever. Money, fame, adulation, they can all go as quickly as they came. Now we all know that wrestling is a predetermined sport, and that title reigns are the higher-ups way of saying, you've worked hard, we like you, show the world what you're about. And even though these reigns are carefully decided and ended by committee, sometimes plans just don't work out. Injuries occur, disagreements arise, contracts end, and before you know it, your champion has to forfeit their title lickety-split. It's never an easy situation, logistically or emotionally for anyone involved, and forfeits throughout the years have seen long-term storylines crumple into dust, incredible reigns end with a whimper, and several careers end on the spot. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is 10 times wrestling championships were forfeited. Join us. Number 10, Finn Balor, Universal Champion. NXT call-ups. What a predictably rubbish pile of arse. Wasn't always that way though, as once upon a time, NXT's ace Finn Balor was called up to main and was actually treated like a goddamn star. During the 2016 draft, Balor was the third draft pick for Raw, above Roman Reigns, John Cena, Randy Orton, and Brock Bastard Lesnar. This was the rocket treatment, and wrestling fans around the world collectively sat up and took notice. And it didn't stop there. Finn went on to win a fatal 4-way, then beat Roman Reigns to set up a SummerSlam match with Seth Rollins to determine the first ever Universal Champion. The Demon King went up against Rollins at the biggest party of the summer, and after 19 minutes nailed the coup de grace to become Universal Champion, as well as the first superstar to win a WWE World title on their pay-per-view debut. 24 hours later, and it was all over. Finn had injured his shoulder during the match due to a barricade bomb by Rollins. Requiring surgery, he was forced to relinquish the title and was out for over 6 months. This one just felt cruel, and even the most cynical, jaded wrestling fan had to feel bad for Balor. Number 9, RVD TV Champion. As ECW was blindly hurtling through its peak and into the grave, there was plenty of writing on the wall. Stars leaving for WWE and WCW, bouncing checks, never mind the big two nicking all of Paul Heyman's best ideas. But there was one last beacon of hope as everyone else was jumping ship. Mr. Monday Night. The whole flippin' show, Rob Van Dam, and he was absolutely phenomenal. So phenomenal was RVD that he elevated ECW's secondary belt, the TV title, to the same level as the world title, defeating Bam Bam Bigelow for the strap in April 1998 and holding it for 700 days. Van Dam's performances were must-see, and as he became the most popular performer in the company, a title showdown was in the works. Rob Van Dam versus Mike Awesome, TV title versus ECW title. This was a match that would have been legitimate box office and could have potentially saved the company or at least kept the wolves from the door for a little while longer. But then, disaster struck. In a title defense against Rhino in January 2000, Van Dam broke his ankle and was forced to relinquish the belt. It's a massive case of what could have been. Van Dam versus Awesome would have been one for the ages, and the payoff to that 700-day title reign would have been brilliant. Number 8, Daniel Bryan, WWE World Heavyweight and Intercontinental. Daniel Bryan's ascent to the top of the WWE mountain at WrestleMania 30 was some of the most compelling TV the WWE had produced in years. The little goat who could caught on with the WWE audience in a way not seen for a very long time. He was one of us, a man of the people, fighting from the bottom and not stopping until he toppled the powers that be. And when he finally stood aloft with a title in each hand as the Silverdome chanted along with him, it was a true feel-good moment. Many were excited for this new era of WWE with Bryan at the forefront, but years of wrestling a hard-hitting and high-impact style had taken its toll, and it came to light that Bryan badly needed neck surgery. Alas, after 64 days as champion, Bryan was forced to relinquish the title and spent the majority of 2014 on the shelf. When he returned to the ring in early 2015, he went right back to business and won the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 31, but then had to vacate this too as more injuries mounted up, leading to his first official retirement. It was hard to swallow for Bryan and fans alike, but luckily he got his moment in the sun when he returned full-time in 2018. Number 7, Edge World Heavyweight title. The Rated R superstar did it all. He won every title in WWE a billion times, competed in a variety of firsts including Money in the Bank and TLC, and amassed a legion of fans in the process. He headlined pay-per-views, was the focal point of SmackDown for years, and even headlined WrestleMania 24 against The Undertaker. But it all came at a cost. Edge's participation in multiple highly dangerous stipulation matches did a world of damage to his body, and his run was peppered by several major surgeries, including multiple to his neck. But he still carried on in the same manner that he always had, racking up title after title. Heading into WrestleMania 27, Edge was World Heavyweight Champion for a record-breaking 7th time, and quickly disposed of #1 contender Alberto Del Rio in the show's opener. What we didn't realize at the time was that this would be Edge's last match for 9 years. Doctors refused to clear Edge to wrestle as he risked paralysis if he took another bump. So, with a lump in his throat, Edge retired a few days after WrestleMania, vacating the World Heavyweight Championship on the spot. And let me tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Number 6, Chris Benoit, WCW World Heavyweight. WCW had a license to print money in the late 90s, as Hogan, Sting, Flair and the boys were selling out arenas left, right and centre. But as these box office fellas were being box office, WCW failed to plan for the future, and neglected to build any new main eventers, Goldberg aside. The product soon got stale, and politics, indecision and personal vendettas tore the company apart from the inside out. Someone must have realised and gone, oh bollocks, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko are all planning to leave and they're all absolutely mint. WCW needed a Hail Mary to stop these phenomenal talents leaving, so after years of excellent performances, they rewarded Benoit with the World Heavyweight title at Sold Out 2000. Benoit beat Sid for the strap, itself vacated by Bret Hart, but the Rabid Wolverine's mind was made up. He vacated the title instantly, packed his bags and headed to Stamford. So why did WCW's offer fail? Partly because it was too little too late, and partly because the four men felt disillusioned and threatened by WCW staff, most notably head booker Kevin Sullivan. For many, this was the final hammer blow to WCW. Number 5, Kentabashi, Triple Crown Champion. All Japan Pro Wrestling in the 90s was arguably the best wrestling promotion on the planet. It put on some of the greatest matches of all time and promoted 4 of the greatest workers we'll ever see. Mitsuharu Misawa, Akira Taue, Toshiaki Kawada, and Kenta Kobashi, aka the 4 Pillars of Heaven. Between them, they had a litany of 5-star matches and title reigns, with all men holding All Japan's top prize, the Triple Crown, and as the protégés of All Japan founder Giant Baba, their spot in the company was pretty sweet. Sadly, in 1999, Baba passed away. Misawa became All Japan president and hoped to continue his mentor's vision, but was soon removed from his position by the board of directors and was publicly slammed by owner Motoko Baba, Giant Baba's widow. It was a massive mistake. So angered were the All Japan locker room that 24 out of the 26 contracted wrestlers turned their back on the promotion to side with Misawa and form Pro Wrestling Noah, including Triple Crown champion Kenta Kobashi, arguably the biggest draw in Japan at the time. Kobashi vacated the title and left his position on All Japan's board. Noah became an instant success, while All Japan's fortunes plummeted, and 20 years later, it's still yet to fully recover. Number 4, Antonio Inoki, WWE Champion. The WWE Championship has a long and prestigious history, and has been vacated over a dozen times, both in kayfabe and reality. The strangest and most controversial of these vacancies involve WWE Hall of Famers Bob Backlund and New Japan godfather Antonio Inoki. Vince McMahon Jr. had previously helped put together the bizarre Inoki vs. Ali fight, and was looking to strengthen ties with Japan's biggest star. Also, sending Backlund to battle Inoki made his champion look even more legitimate. On their first encounter, Inoki beat Backlund for the title, only to lose it back to Bob 6 days later. Sort of. The rematch ended weirdly and controversially due to distraction from Tiger Jeet Singh, and despite Backlund getting the pin, officials took the belt from Bob and handed it to Inoki, declaring that he was still champion. Inoki instantly forfeited the title, Backlund returned to America, and everyone just decided to ignore the title switch and say that Backlund had an uninterrupted run with the gold. Phantom reigns like this were commonplace back in the territories, done to make a local promotion's top star look great, but was this how it was meant to play out, or did Inoki's infamous ego come into play? Number 3, Shane Douglas NWA title. By the early 90s, the once dominant NWA was a shadow of its former self, and having split with main promotion WCW, needed to hitch its flag to a bright young star in a fresh company. The NWA title was up in the air as WCW and Ric Flair refused to drop the belt, so a one-night tournament was set up with Philadelphia's Eastern Championship Wrestling to crown a new figurehead. The final saw Too Cold Scorpio taking on the brash Shane Douglas for the strap, and after 12 minutes and a sweet belly-to-belly, Douglas was NWA World Champion. Douglas had done it, and in front of God and his father cemented his place amongst the greats. Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race, Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, and they could all kiss his ass. Douglas threw the title down and said that he didn't want to be the face of a dead promotion, instead declaring himself the ECW World Champion, as the Philadelphia Federation severed its ties from the past and changed the future of pro wrestling. The NWA was already weak, but this all but killed it off for the best part of 20 years. Douglas and ECW, however, never looked back. Number 2, Shawn Michaels' WWE title. Shawn Michaels has vacated more titles than you've had hot dinners. He just loved doing it. Whether through drug suspensions, the fallout from the Syracuse incident, or whatever else, HBK's title forfeitures are as plentiful as his era-defining matches. But the one which tops them all was when he lost his smile in 1997. Michaels told the world that he had a career-threatening knee injury and would have to drop the WWE title in face of surgery and possibly retirement. Something smelled a little fishy though. Possibly the fact that Shawn was penciled in to drop the title to best mate Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. Surely he wouldn't do his BFF dirty like that. No! Well, yes and no. Michaels did have a knee injury, but it's believed to have been nowhere as bad as he made out. Combine that with being burnt out and off his head on drugs, and it was clear that he needed some time away. But this was when Michaels was a grade A dickhead, and if he didn't want to do business, then he would find any way of avoiding it. Bret went on to have one of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever with Steve Austin, while Shawn found his smile and capped off 1997 with the Montreal Screwjob. Nice fella. Number 1, Ric Flair, WCW World Champion. You find yourself in charge of the second biggest wrestling company in America. Do you A, stick to the status quo but make subtle changes that will ensure growth? Or B, go after your top star, tell him to change everything that made him a success, and demand he take a massive pay cut? If you answered B, then congratulations, you are Jim Herd, former president of World Championship Wrestling. Herd made tons of friends when he joined WCW, especially world champion Ric Flair. Herd was pretty clueless about wrestling and didn't get the Nature Boy, so suggested he cut his hair off, wear a diamond earring, and become Spartacus. Flair told him to woo right off and left for WWE. Herd stripped Flair of the title and introduced a new belt, which Lex Luger won at the Great American Bash, because Flair was still in possession of Big Goldie. Next thing you know, real world's champion Flair is on WWE TV with Bobby Heenan and the big gold belt, while Herd was sinking in WCW as angry audiences across America yelled, "We want Flair!" until they were blue in the face. A gigantic, farcical mess, and possibly one situation that convinced Vince to screw Bret just a few years later.